Hi everybody, it's Scott here. Today we're doing the second of the NI demonstration video series, and today we have Julie. So hello Julie.
Hi.
So we're just going to have a conversation, and Julie has a few topics that she wants to discuss, and they'll come up as we go along. And so it might take us a good, like I said in the first video, NI demonstration video, it might take us a good, maybe 10 minutes just to get into the zone of what this this video series is about. So just bear with us as we sort of find our way into the conversation. So Julie, just in regards to the topics that you've brought to today, where would you like to start? Just off the top, where would you like to start?
Well, I've been very fascinated when I discovered, I believe I am an INFJ. I am in my mid-40s, and I knew nothing about really the MBTI, except I know that here in the United States they do it on an exit exam in high school. It taught me a lot. It helped me see a lot of myself, and explained a lot growing up. I was an only child. I was born to older parents. Like I said, I'm in my mid-40s now, so back then it wasn't quite as common as it is now. But I always felt slightly different. I didn't know why, if it was because I had older parents or I didn't know, or if I was an only child. All my friends had siblings. Their parents were younger. So, but I grew up in a very nice home. I had everything. My friends were usually always telling me how envious they were of me in a way, because I did. I had a lot of I had a lot of opportunities and things that a lot of my friends didn't get just because there's somebody in the family. But I think growing up, I just always felt a little hypersensitive, I guess, or I don't know how to explain it. Maybe that I was too like I felt too much, that I was too sensitive in a way. I was told a lot. So everything, I was aware of, but I didn't understand that until I'm starting to understand it now at my age, and it's really kind of interesting. It makes a lot of sense now.
Right.
Unfortunately, it took me till this age to kind of understand that. But I like I said, my parents were older. My dad was in 45 when I was born. He died when I was 19, and I had a very strong mother who was very successful, and she's very strong, and she taught me a lot. And once my father passed away, my mother and I just became I think almost the word is enmeshed.
Right. Yeah.
So it's the whole process of my adult life has kind of just shifted from that. But growing up, I was I had friends, but I only had I really have one or two, mainly one that's my best friend. I've always been that way.
Yes.
For instance, my ex-husband, or people I know that have, or even my oldest daughter, they have a lot of friends, and I don't. I thought I was always different because but I'm very super close to my one friend. That is a person I trust immensely. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not that I don't like being around other people, but I have a hard time. I just need to know somebody really well, and once they're my friend, they are that's it. I don't need I don't know how to explain that. It's my own world.
I think that's quite common for INFJs. Not all, but I think for a lot of INFJs, they feel quite comfortable They just want to have, one or two people in their world that they can sort of do a journey with, and they're allowed into the inner sanctum, and everybody else seems to just remain outside of that circle.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's always been that way for me. Since I was a small child, there's that one person that was even though I would do the normal things as a child or as a teenager with other people, I never felt close like I did to that one friend that I could talk to about, and just that's all I really needed.
With those people that were in that, I guess, that circle with you, I would assume that your NI in some way was valued or allowed to be expressed somehow in those connections.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always kind of, I guess I didn't realize what it was because I didn't realize that I had I knew I did, but I didn't really know myself, I think, is growing up. I didn't understand myself. I was not very aware of what was going on in my life on I don't want to say an intellectual level, but I think being an only child, I was really sheltered from a lot of things.
Right.
And I never questioned anything, I think is what it was. So, I think if I was told that I was wrong or whatever, I did question my intuition a lot. I second guessed myself. I thought I was being judgmental. If that makes sense.
Sure.
And sort of.
Sure. So just being an only child and feeling, I think you said at the start of our chat that you felt you felt different. And I guess I just wonder if being an only child, like if you had a sibling, there just would have been more opportunity to have sort of parts of you bounce parts of yourself off your sibling to get a little bit more understanding of your own self as well. But as an only child, and being more just closer to a few people as opposed to having the big group of friends, there just wasn't a lot of opportunity for that and sort of check that self-understanding. Does that resonate?
No, actually it does. Yeah, it does. I have what you just said is exactly what my one close friend had said the same thing to me. I had nobody to mirror off of. I've had a lot of shame at being my age and not seeing things that were so obvious to most adults.
Right.
If that makes sense, that it's probably the shame that I have, like, why didn't I know any better, or why did I allow some things in my life? But that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Yeah. So the lack of ability to understand yourself and having sort of, it doesn't sound like necessarily negative feedback, but just sort of, you're getting that's not right or that's not correct, or that sort of feedback growing up, that lack of that experience led to a shame space, a shame part, that there must be something wrong with me or something like that. Yeah, right.
Yes.
And it really was just you were normal, you just weren't understood.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I believed I was everything I was told I was. So whether it was correct or not, I've since learned I chose to believe what I was told, and I doubted myself a lot. I doubted my intuition. And now that I've understood it and I look back on my life, it was always right. And I am so happy I found it, because now I trust it more than anything. And I really do. I feel so much happier, and just really knowing that my gut's right. It is. And I don't get it with everybody, but I get it. And it has made me just a happier person, just knowing this.
I think I was trusting myself. Yeah, trusting yourself. I think I was saying this at some point in the video with Jeff in the NI demonstration number one, that often INFJs, when they don't feel understood in childhood, it's often the MBTI that sort of becomes that a validation, you know, that acceptance that wasn't gained in childhood. Sort of the MBTI sort of does that for the INFJ and sort of affirms their deeper self. Has that been your experience?
Oh, yes. It was very validating for me, and you know, just searching out on the web and learning about it. I did what they all took the test over. I even had somebody who knew me really well take the test for me, and
right.
And so just to make sure, because I wasn't, and then the more I learned about it, the more I just so much more self-assured about my intuition, especially. And I don't feel so different because I am introverted and that I need my time. And I think I battle shyness in new environments also, which is a little different. But I can tell you that my family the people that know me well, but they think introvertedness is shyness, and they will tell you I don't stop talking. So, and that's, but it's only the shyness in new environments. But I do need my time alone So I'm very happy I discovered it. It has validated a lot for me, and I feel more self-assured.
Yeah.
You know, I wish I would have discovered it earlier, but it's part of life, I think, and you grow as you keep going.
Yeah. So I'm just curious. You mentioned the hypersensitivity before. I'm just curious if the way that you hold that part of you has changed as well since discovering the MBTI. Do you see that differently, or do you hold or experience that part of you differently now?
Is being sensitive to other people, or
because growing up, you know, being told you're too sensitive. I was very hyper.
I was. Yes, I don't take things personally as much. I always did.
Right.
And I have tried to self-discover that what other people do, and learning about other people's MBTI has helped me a lot.
Yes.
In how they view things very differently than I do. That has helped me. So it has helped in me not being quite as hypersensitive as I did take most things personally in the past. Now I realize that there are other people out there that see the world very differently than I do. And that was really fascinating when I discovered that, because it made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like, how could, you know, it used to just kind of aggravate me and cause arguments. Like, how can you not see that? But at the same time, my intuition of reading somebody's face, I couldn't see things, just simple little things that were like, I'd probably be the worst eyewitness if somebody ran past me in a robbery. Do you know what I mean? But my friend, who's a total opposite, could not read somebody's, like, they were sad or they were hear it in their voice, and it was fascinating to discover that. It made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I have a bit of a story actually on that one. I woke up in the middle of the night in my early 20s to some yelling outside, and I looked out the window, and a guy walked across to the neighbour's house and smashed all of his windows of his house and ran up the street. Like, I saw it, I witnessed the whole thing, and I thought I guess I'd better, you know, ring the police or just give them a statement or something like that. And I went down to give the statement, and, you know, they ask all the questions and all of this, and he asked me the person's, like, I was very detailed, and then they asked me the person's skin color, and I didn't know.
I believe it.
I didn't know, and I thought, how could I not know that? And I just took a guess. I thought it was a 50-50 gamble. So I said, I think he was white, and he said he was actually black, and I was like, oh, and and I walked out of there quite embarrassed, because I saw the entire thing, but I didn't take I didn't take that information in. And again, discovering the MBTI sort of helped me to understand that sort of extroverted sensing function. You know, I'm sort of in the sensory world, but not of it, you know, and so I take in, I don't take a lot of sensory information in necessarily, even though I saw that quite vividly. So, yeah.
Could be. Yeah, I have discovered that about myself also.
Yes.
You know, I could walk right past somebody and then another person could say, well, did you just see? And yes, I know a person just walked past me, but I kind of just put it up. I'm always in my head so that, yes, I would probably be the worst eyewitness there ever was.
Right.
And it's made me very aware, and I'm trying to pay attention to the details, the things that I'm fascinated that my polar opposite friend can see. I don't see that, and I'm trying to focus more on that because I'm trying to work on that some more. But it's not easy.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah. But I was curious on your thoughts on I don't understand. Well, I mean, I don't know. There doesn't have to be a reason, but they say that INFJs are so rare. But I was kind of curious about the last gentleman you talked to, and if it is somewhat comes from childhood abuse or whatever, or dysfunctional homes,
right?
You know, because you know maybe it may be rare, but it's not obviously the most, I guess, you would call it stereotypically the best personality type in a way. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I mean, it seems like there's a few other ones that are much more pleasant or nicer. I don't know, but
right.
I don't get hung up on the few of us. I was just because you know we're a little more set. And I don't know. I feel like I'm set in certain things, and I looked at the INFPs, and they just seem a little more, and I just can't. I just have this side of me that I guess I'm not sure how to explain it to you. But I will say it has helped me a lot. It's helped me even to understand my children. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And how vastly different even my parents and I are. I don't know for sure exactly what, but I have a pretty good idea.
Yes.
But it makes a lot of sense why growing up I had such a combative relationship with my mother. I think. Right. We are so different.
Do you have a sense of what her dominant function is?
It's intuition. Okay. I believe it's intuition. But she's a thinker. I do know that. I know it's intuition and she's a thinker.
Right.
Not quite sure on this sensing, and I would say she's a judger. I almost want to say she's an INTJ.
Okay.
But yeah.
Which means she would be extroverting her thinking if that was the case.
Yes, she's much more of a where I am much more sensitive in feelings and I guess empathy, or I really have this, and I've discovered it more and more, paying attention to myself, that somebody could tell me a problem and I can always see both sides of it.
Yeah.
And I think that upsets a few, maybe friends or family members, because it's not that I agree with them, but I always can play both sides. I just really can. I can understand on both sides how an argument or anything might go.
Yes.
And how somebody else might see it a different way. If that. So that's been.
I guess that's what you're speaking. Sorry?
Doesn't always make my friends very happy, but I mean, I try because there are two sides to everything, and people do see it differently.
I guess what you're speaking to there, in a sense, is the other tagline that INFJs can have, which is counsellor. That counsellors can see both sides of an argument and see the middle ground and see how both would be seeing things from their point of view and all of that. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yes, I've had a good friend of mine that also talked to me about the mirroring. That's what made me smile when you said that.
Okay.
Suggested I should look into doing this, and I thought, no, I don't. Go into some kind of counseling, and I don't know. I don't know that it's somewhere. Just as I've learned so much in the last few years, just with my own personal life and things. I'm not sure about something like that.
Like becoming a counselor, you mean?
Yes, I mean, if I can ask you a question, wouldn't you? At least for me, being empathetic, it's draining. Because when my friend or somebody I know is sad or hurting, like it affects me, and I can imagine doing this. I understand why INFJs are the counselor, but it must be very taxing in a way.
Yeah, I think some thoughts on that would be, I think empathy in one's personal life is a different experience to empathy within a counselling setting. It's still empathy, but because the counsellor is not emotionally involved with the other party, it's not so much a drain on just sort of your own personal resources. Whereas with a loved one, there's more of the person's fuller self that's involved in whatever is going on for the other person, just because there's attachment and connection. But my experience as a counsellor is that I actually find, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm tired, but it's also quite energizing being with people within their own world and helping people to sort of work that out, work their own life.
Because you're doing something. You're doing a great. You feel like you're contributing to. You're doing something great. I understand that feeling too. Like that feeling accomplished. That you've made a difference in someone's life. Feeling.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I understand that.
I think that's. Sorry.
Oh no. I mean I do understand that on a different level, not as a counselor, but just with a friend counselor or whatever. I do feel at times that I have made a difference, and that does feel good.
Yeah, I think that's certainly an INFJ trait, that sort of that positive, good feeling that comes with being of service or assistance to someone in a time of need, and seeing that the INFJ seeing that they've made their presence has sort of helped to bring about a bit of healing or a little bit of clarity or something like that. It seems to give the INFJ I'd say a healthy buzz. Yeah,
I do. I agree. I do. Even though I don't think that it's always wanted, maybe by some friends of family. Even though I love, I feel like sometimes I'm at my best when I am, but they may not say so.
Yes.
But I know. I try not to cross the boundaries of being too helpful. But I want to. It's like, so I'm not sure.
I think it's kind of natural for a lot of INFJs just to share that awareness or that insight or understanding, with other people. It's just other people might not also not always in a space to hear it or want to hear it, and it's like, well, why not? It's truth. It's enlightening. It's going to
Yes,
change you, and it's like, yes, thank you, but no.
I get that, and you talk too much. You're too open. You tell people everything.
Right,
You
right.
do it as an open book, or But to me, it's the truth. But yes, I do get
That's
that. So in my personal
yeah.
life,
It's
yeah.
that sort of INFJ paradoxes of, like, in new situations, you almost get nothing out of the INFJ, but with a close friend, they could talk for days.
Mm, hmm
So those,
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, I totally understand that um,
mm,
it's strange, and it is, but it does help me though to understand other people's
yeah,
MBTI. It really has made, even that has made a big difference for me
yeah,
because I had people that confounded me in my life that,
mm,
what is wrong with you? I was convinced that there was something, and really, no, there's not. We're vastly different.
yeah,
And that has helped me understand other people and relate to them is the
yeah,
biggest thing. So
mm,
I hope more people do learn not just their own, but about others
yeah,
and trying to relate to them. It does make a big difference. It
mm,
makes a lot of
mm,
sense, and you understand why
mm,
some people react the way they do.
yeah, yeah,
And that's all.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you were saying before, you sort of referred to the last NI demonstration chat and the talk around family of origin and INFJs growing up. And was there something specific that you wanted to sort of look at in regards to that topic?
Well, um, I guess just like learning about MBTI at my later age, I guess I learned that I had suffered abuse, and my version of what I thought was abuse
Right.
wasn't the same, and it took me until my mid 40s to wake, or my 40 till 40 to wake up to what I thought was abuse.
Hmm.
I thought it was just bad names and hitting, and that there's other forms of it, and that can be just as awful. And I was wondering if that, in dysfunctional families, if that had
Hmm.
anything to do with INFJs and what you were talking about with that gentleman,
Hmm.
you know what I mean, them being hypersensitive and empathetic, and it
So,
stems
so
from that.
yeah. So in that, are you sort of saying it? There's kind of few things in what you're saying there.
Mhm.
Is part of what you're saying that INFJs, because of because they're different, because they can carry a sensitivity, that means that they might see their childhood in a way, like it might feel abusive, but they find out that it's actually not. It was more about their sensitivity. Is that kind of what you're saying, or something like that?
Yeah, but it was the opposite. I was growing up, thought I had a very great, wonderful life compared to most
Right,
people.
right.
And it wasn't until I was older that I discovered that it wasn't what I thought it was, and that it
Mm,
was much more. What I thought was
mm,
considered abuse was only certain things, but I was more emotionally and psychologically.
right. So you
But
started to
I
get
thought for so long it was I had a great, I believed for so long that, like, no, I had a great, I would have told
mm,
you. And then I discovered, after suffering from abuse that was what I thought was abuse, tangible hitting, that it woke me up to why I was in a relationship with somebody who was at my age and never had been in one. So I started understanding different forms of whether it's emotional, psychological neglect,
mm,
or
mm.
just not showing love at all,
Yeah,
emotional love, that kind of
yeah.
stuff. I
Mm.
didn't realize really that that was a form of abuse.
Right, sure. I think what you're talking about there is not unique to INFJs. I think, when we grow up in a family, um, like I think you were saying, whatever it was, it is normal because that's our experience. And then we grow up and we learn about things, we hear other people's stories, and then we get a bit of a different take on childhood and get to see it from a different lens. And it's just, children just naturally want to sort of see to see to have the realization as a child that this is abuse is very distressing. Mm-hmm. And so the child learns to either take it personally that there's something wrong with the child needs to change, and sort of block those parts of childhood out in order to survive it. Mm-hmm. And then later on look back on it and go, yeah, that happened, and yeah, this happened, and that happened, and get a totally different take on it. But it's a form of, I guess, a form of defense, a defense mechanism to survive, abusive childhoods, or even sort of mild forms of neglect and things like that.
Correct. Right. I mean, any bystander, and even my own self for so many years, I would have said I had the greatest childhood, and I believed I did, and I didn't know any different. And it wasn't until, like I said, I hit about 40, and I did get into a relationship what I thought was abuse with somebody hitting me, that it made me kind of delve into me, like, why all of a sudden I thought, my thought process, what I thought was that this was a pattern people have. What's wrong with me all of a sudden, that this didn't happen in my past, and this didn't happen with my parents, hitting or anything like that, and this is not right. And that's when I started really, my whole thinking and everything I thought and I believed kind of just shook me. And I started delving into a lot of things for years, the last probably 4 years, and MBTI just happened to come along when I was just trying to understand myself. Because really what I was trying to do is trying to figure out why I was in this situation. Because I thought normally women had a pattern of being in relationships like that, and I didn't. My father never did that to my mother. My ex-husband never did that to me. And that's when I discovered what I thought and I believed about abuse was not exactly what I thought. In that way, it's kind of hard to explain, I guess. I just I allowed a lot of things to happen that I'm ashamed of, that like most people would never let as an adult happen to them, and that's hard for me. But I am grateful that I have discovered this.
So that validated. So I was just going to say, was that abusive relationship help to shine some light on some aspects of your childhood that that you needed to see?
Yes, I actually would say that a relationship is, abuse is not good, but it woke me up. Two things. It made me start looking into myself and what I thought was wrong with me, that why I was in this at my age without a pattern of it. It really started me looking into myself about 4 years ago, and it's been like something I've really been looking into a lot about. Not to look to push blame on anybody, because I have come full circle now, and I understand that dysfunction breeds dysfunction. You know what I mean? So I understand that. I understand that how my mother and father were raised by their parents, and how we pass it on. So I'm a little more. I went through a really hard time, but I think now I'm more understanding and of why things happen the way they do, and it makes a lot more sense. So it does give me peace. It really does. So
finding those answers and those truths, even in the midst of challenging circumstances and relationships. It can often sort of happen that way, that sort of, pain can sometimes motivate us to look for answers and truth and clarity into certain areas of our lives.
Yes. Yeah, I do. I would have told you probably 3 years ago, you don't want to wake up. You don't want to. It's the worst thing. I don't highly recommend it.
Right.
And I did. It was a very hard year for me, emotionally, psychologically. But now that I feel like I've come now to the other side,
Yeah.
I have a lot more understanding. Now, I will say, just saying, I wished I'd known this 20 years ago, and would
Sure.
have, because of my own children.
Yeah.
And that's a concern, but yeah, I felt, why did it take me this long to, but it is what it is. And I think if you always have to keep learning. So I'm happy about what I know now, and I feel much more at peace with myself. I wish there were more of people our age, though, talking about this a little more.
Yeah. Right.
Hard to find.
Yeah, sure. So the MBTI has really helped to sort of bring clarity and understanding to yourself and others, and it's brought a peace.
I don't feel so strange.
Yeah.
I always felt somehow I was different, even with my family and friends, that there was always something weird about me in a way.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that anymore. I understand I'm confident in myself, and I trust myself now. I do have a trust in myself that I didn't have before, and that's validating when you understand yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So the NI that you, I guess I'd just, rather than say it that way, ask a question. What's been your experience of NI, like growing up and up until you sort of met the MBTI, if you like, and it shone a light on NI, and also sort of looking back on your life, how do you see NI sort of played its role in your life?
It was always there, always. I just inside I always knew things.
Yes.
But in the downside, the way it's played a role in my life is, and maybe this was from how I was raised, I doubted it a lot, and so for that, I didn't trust myself, and then for that, it was the bad part of growing up with it, that I think if you have dysfunctional type parents and you're raised like that, and I wasn't taught to trust myself or trust my instincts. But when I look back on my childhood, they were right. I had to really look back and spend a lot of time just going back over my life and looking at different situations in my life, and I was right. My gut told me and how things ended up, and I don't always have that feeling with anybody I meet or with any situation. But the times I did, and I look back, they ended up that way, if that makes sense. So I can't say that just because I meet somebody, I'm going to have this gut feeling, but it's really, for me, it's been looking back over my life that I can see it. So it's always been there. I'm glad I have it. It is interesting. I feel much more confident, and I do trust myself a lot more.
Yes.
I really do. It helps to know about yourself like that, because I really did think I was strange or a little weird, or
So
and I believe one of my daughters is possibly an INFJ. I have several daughters, but I believe one of them possibly is one.
Okay.
And I think, but she feels, I don't know, but just observing her,
Mm.
I
Okay.
kind of think she has that same feeling in a way, but I'm not sure. I can't
Mm.
speak for her, but
Mm.
I wouldn't be surprised. But it was
Yeah.
only one of them, so they're all different.
Mm.
Um, but it makes sense. You know, you
Yeah.
have children, and they can be so vastly different.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you felt misunderstood as a child with your NI. However, you might have had an INTJ mother who also has NI as a dominant function.
Hmm.
And so then it sort of brings into question if that is actually truth, that the FE and the TE and the differences in the way in which they communicate their NI.
Hmm. That's a hard one for me because I don't know how much what you call a personality disorder plays into. And I've even heard it talked about with INFJs and having a personality disorder. I don't
Right.
know how much that plays into it. I was told in my 20s by two different psychiatrists that she had narcissistic personality disorder,
Okay.
but I didn't delve into it.
Mm-hmm.
I, looking back, wished I had. I kind of glossed over it in my life and went on with my life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's very, and I don't want to like just type her, but I don't know how much that plays into it. And I had to delve into my own self
Yeah.
with me raised that way and the tendencies I was seeing in myself. And I'm not
Mm.
sure.
Mm. Mm.
I it's been a hard one, but she's I just don't know how to explain it.
Mm. Well, usually when children are brought up in a narcissistic type environment, you know, the narcissist can't take responsibility for anything, and it's always other people's fault. And that there's like this pathological self-centeredness, and everything. Like the child's identity or the child's reality doesn't exist in the world of the narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
There's like an invisibility. You know, these are some traits that can be exhibited by the narcissist, and especially a parent-child dynamic. Um,
Yeah, I
is
feel
that
like it.
resonating? Or?
Yes, I feel like it took me until about 40 years of age to discover who I really was.
Mm,
I think when I started to become aware, I didn't really know who I was.
right.
I didn't. It's been a very long 4 years for me,
Mm,
but I do believe yes. And then you go through all the am I that and the traits
sure.
you learn and you
Mm,
do and you can't ignore that and
yeah.
I just it's just a regret that I had three children and that I passed that kind of dysfunction on in whatever shape or form to them, whether it's being codependent, empathetic, or enabling, or
Right.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I wished but it's a regret. But I'm glad I know now because I
Mm,
do think that not a lot of people ever do become aware, self-aware.
mm, mm. And the fact that you've become self-aware means that you're not in that category.
Yeah, I'm self-aware.
You're
I
fine.
I was worried for a while there. I really was. Yeah, I went through a year of like, oh no. So,
Yeah,
um, but
yeah.
but
The usual sign that someone isn't a narcissist is that they ask the question.
well, I was asking a lot, going, "Oh Lord, I do that," and I was questioning myself for a long time. But as
Yeah.
I did, I went through the anger, and it was a very, very hard time for me. Probably the worst of my
Mm,
life.
mm,
But now I'm not empathy, but I don't know if it's empathy or pity for my mom. Like, I can see how her life became the way it was. I'm past all the anger and I can understand it, but I also realize she's not self-aware yet, and I don't believe she ever will be at her age right now. But I've gotten to that point within myself I'm not okay with it, but I can handle it now. So it's been a long process, but too bad I had to be 40 to figure it all out. But
yeah, very true. I guess the reality is some people, for whatever reason, don't ever get a chance to figure some of this stuff out. So
that's what
40 is young compared to not ever being able to figure it out or having that opportunity.
I have realized that a lot of people, they don't, and that's too bad. I don't know. I went through a really tough time, so I'm not sure. I don't mean to make light of it, but I went through points where I was saying I don't think you want to really wake up to reality sometimes, but I think now that I'm on the other side, I'm okay. I'm happy. I'm awake. I'm I'm not happy with the things that have happened in my life, but I'm aware.
So just an assumption or / question. Was it that abusive relationship that kind of forced you to wake up, to open up some of these cans, if you like, to figure some stuff out? Right.
Yeah, it was. It really was. It was this one person that was so vastly different than any person I had been in a relationship with that made me, it was so out of my norm to have somebody actually physically slap me or hit me that it made me look into myself. That is really what, and I think had that not happened, I don't know that I would have ever woken up. Really.
Right.
So, I can say for that, I guess I'm grateful.
Sure. Yeah.
And this person I'm pretty confident in that was in my life is an ESTP, and he woke up with me for several years as I was delving into myself, and so for that I'm glad I am aware. I'm grateful, that there are people like you and others out there that nowadays we can learn more about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's so much out there now with the internet that we can do a lot of research.
Yes, and that's the other thing, and then you just have to be very careful about. I try to take everything with a grain of salt now, and it's taken me a long time to discover that, but I was grateful to find you, and I was listening to you, and please don't take this as the wrong thing, but my friend's like, he's just like, he talks just like very monotone. And I'm like, that's how I'm described, like, you're not. And I was like, see, there's finally somebody like me that just talks like matter-of-factly. Where I have friends that are very extroverted and very, and they always, you're so drab, you're so monotone. But the point is, I understood what you were saying, where they're not looking at what you were describing in what I was listening to. All they could see is this. They're seeing the surface and not really what you're saying, and I connect with that.
Exactly.
That was big for me to connect with that. I got it. And people other personalities didn't get it.
It's been one of those things for me on the channel, has been finding it quite challenging emoting to the camera.
Yes.
To just a static piece of equipment. I think other people can sort of do that. It's been a challenge for me in that sense to emote in that way. It's not until I'm interacting with somebody else that the F is able to come out. But yeah, just in front of the camera, I find it almost fake, to be honest, and I don't want to be fake, and so yeah, I just go in front of the camera however I am, and because I know that the content is sound, and that's the mission, is to get that out there.
No, I do understand. I've only done a YouTube video once, and when I went back and watched it, my eyes really opened up about myself, and I thought, well, no wonder people have been saying about this about me all my life, you know, or their perceptions of me, because I, as an outsider looking at myself, well, I could see it, and I was like, wow, that's why I've heard all these things about myself that people assume I am, that people closest to me know I'm not. And I used to get that a lot in school, in high school. And
yes.
But my closest friends know that that's not true, you know, that I am very warm. But most people find me standoffish and cold. Or I'm trying as an adult to be I'm trying to purposely to work on it, to actually make an effort to be more and pay attention to the details more so. And I have to work at it, I really do, but
I think it's a common thing for INFJs to be called as standoffish, but clearly misunderstanding versus what the intent is internally versus what is seen externally. And so, yeah, just another misunderstanding, which I think there's a lot in the world. Without understanding, there's a lot of misunderstanding.
I mean, I don't know about you, but did you get that a lot as you were growing up? I mean, I did in high school, but then watching myself on a video, wow, I really saw it for the first time in my life. And no wonder people assume that about me. So yeah, or you know, other words in high school they use, you know, cold, snotty, stuck up, or whatever they used to say. But I could see that in myself, and I can now understand why. I think videotaping or yourself is a great way, or even recording, you know, like seeing yourself in a different perspective as a third person is very enlightening.
I think I was called, the word that stands out to me at the moment about my growing up years was serious. You know, I was like, that seemed to be a bit of a tag line that followed me around. Was being serious.
Yes, I've heard that one a lot. Lighten up. Don't you ever want to? I've actually, my own child.
There it is.
My own child said that to me. Mom, do you ever just have fun?
Yeah.
Mom, do you ever just do anything just for the fun of it?
There's too much thinking to do.
And it really hit me when my own daughter had to say that to me. I was like, really? Yeah. She's like, do you ever just do anything for fun? You're always so
Yeah.
Well, yes. That was an enlightening moment that time. But
yeah. So is there any other aspects of the topics that you wanted to explore that you wanted to touch on?
I don't. How do you, when you are an INFJ, would you say, especially when you're dealing with somebody who's a sensor and, you know, a perceiver, it's very hard to, I have to really, now that I understand it, I do understand it, but it's, we, you know, it causes a lot of conflict between us, you know, being an ES or being an ISTP and me being an INFJ. It's, you know, I've heard that we're opposite, but I don't think it's really a great, obviously. It seems to cause more problems than actually positives, like I've heard some say, and dealing with people, and I try to understand, But I guess it's frustrating with me, like, how can you not tell this person and how they feel when they walk in a room and or you hear their voice?
Right.
Boggles my mind.
Say that
Like,
again, that bit?
well, how a person who is a sensor or a thinker, a perceiver,
Yeah.
how they can't hear it in the sadness or the unhappiness in a facial expression on another human being.
Yes. I think part of that, it's not that they don't recognize it, it's that it's parked.
It's what?
It's parked. It's like any of the emotion is taken out of the situation in order to make decisions. And so it's not that it's not necessarily noticed, but it's secondary to the logic.
Okay.
So they thinkers can sort of park the emotions, like it's not relevant. It's going to negatively influence my decision making. So I'm going to put it aside, so I can make a sound in a logical sense, a sound logical decision. And so it's just not taken into account like the feeler would, where they'll use the feeling to help to make a decision. The whole sensor side of things, the N and the S tends to be a bit of a, I've heard it called like the S and N divide. And just the differences that they both hold. And I think it comes down to the individuals, because I think if there's maturity and a willingness to understand the other, then there can be great connectedness between the S and the N types. When they learn to appreciate and understand the differences and all of that, it's when a person just be like me, think like me, be like me, a bit like a lot of people's childhoods. You're not thinking properly, that's not right, that's not logical, you're wrong, these things. When there's an awareness of the vast differences that we carry, then it can be quite exciting, I think. This is what I'm thinking, and then to the sensor, what are you seeing in this? What do you think? What are you noticing? And getting their unique take on it can be, I think, quite enriching. But it takes effort. It takes more conscious effort to the more natural approach of like two ends just sort of naturally flowing together. Needs to be more of a deliberate, conscious effort to engage and understand.
When I discovered this person in my life that is the sensor, it was fascinating. It really did. I found it and I think that is my fourth function, and I am trying to actively use it more to make myself more of to be more of a well-rounded person, I guess, in a sense, because it is lacking very much. I think it's a little late in blooming in my life, but I'm trying to activate it. But it was a very eye-opening and very. I was really excited when I discovered that, because then it was like made a lot of sense. So
what can potentially cause a lot of conflict actually can create a lot of connection.
Yes, it went from a lot of chaos and just bashing heads to that makes so much sense. It finally makes sense. No wonder, yes, it did. It was no wonder I don't see everything kind of thing. And anyways, yes, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah. I've got an introverted sensing dominant friend of mine, and when we're in the car and driving somewhere, I'll be talking, and all of a sudden my intuition says they're not listening, they're disengaged. What's going on here? And I'm like, where have you gone? And it might be because we're driving in a new location, and the sensor is just taking in all of the sensory data and information, and they just kind of go into this SI zone, And so knowing that and understanding that means, okay, then they're not necessarily disinterested in what I'm saying. They've just hit an SI moment, and they're like collecting data in the sensory world. And I'm like, okay, cool. We'll talk when we get there.
It is true. They do. It's like I've just said the same thing. Are you there?
And I'm like, what sensory data?
Yeah, it is true, and vice versa. I get, how could you not see that? How could you not notice? How could you? I don't know. I was somewhere in here, but it is very true, and it is very. It makes a lot of sense. But yeah, it helps to understand, and I think it's very fascinating, and I don't know how much. I'm in the United States, so I'm not sure how much it's used here with psychology and therapy. But I think it's an interesting part of it, and I'm going to be looking around for it here, because I am very fascinated. I think it is an integral part of therapy and counseling, and to understand different people.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in the world of psychology. There's those that hate it, and there's those that embrace it, and I think that's also reflective in the culture. There's people that just think it's nonsense, and there's those that it's changed their lives, and it just seems to be that way. People either love it or hate it, type thing. And in the psychology world, it's very similar. They can hassle the theory that it's not, repeatable and all of this sort of stuff. But tell a INFJ or an INFP that it's irrelevant, and you'll get a different response, because it's, Sometimes I wonder if the MBTI, was created for the INFJ and the INFP. give them a platform to be heard and understood.
That's true. Yeah.
Everybody else is like, yeah, that sounds like me. Anyway, what are we doing? And the INFJ is like,
yeah, I know, and I know I'm delving.
Yeah, exactly. I'll see you in 6 months. I've got work to do.
Are you done? We've heard of us all. So yes, I know. Yes, you can't learn enough. It's just, it is. I think it probably was.
Yeah. All right, Julie. I think it's been about an hour.
Okay.
So I just wanted to thank you for taking part in engaging in the conversation, and also just wanted to thank you for being so open with your own story and your experience. I appreciate it, and I'm sure those that will watch this will also appreciate it as well.
Well, I appreciate you, and thank you. You've helped me also in my learning of myself, but thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right.
Excellent. Discovering the INFJ profile and resonating with it is sort of helping to bring clarity to who you are.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of, as I understand myself, I can understand it in other people, and I can see how they're interacting. So, and I think that's what started my, only a couple of years back from that depression, anxiety to
INFJs in the workplace, being invisible, mistakenly being viewed as not a team player. The second point was INFJs' challenges interacting with less deep MBTI types, and INFJs in a family system. So